Hey, how we doing everyone? Mitch here with another Logic Pro X tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about the Arpeggiator. So, first things first, let's listen to this track that we have in front of us. It's called the 80s Polysynth. It's a preset here in Logic Pro X and it sounds like this. Alright, so a little reverb delay, and we're going to put an arpeggiator on this track. So, on the track line over here to the left, we are going to select MIDI effects and then arpeggiator. So, let's get to know this interface here. The top left is going to be your on and off, play or not play. If you play a note, you can see that that light pops up, and that's just signifying that there's MIDI passing through the plugin. The next section is the latch section. Latch, I'm going to call synonymous to the sustain pedal on any keyboard. When you play a note and you lift off of it, it's still going to be playing when the latch is turned on. So let's just give a little demo here. Let's select the add mode, turn on this latch, and let's play some notes. Every note that I play, I'm going to let off before I play the next. Alright, so you can tell immediately that in the grid down here in the pattern section, it records the note along with its velocity. So very cool. So another mode that I feel like I should show you guys, because it's a very cool little mode, is the through mode. So basically the premise here is that you can play an arpeggio, and then once that is created, you can play anything behind it without anything to do with arpeggiator. If that doesn't make sense here, let me just give you a little demo with this as well. So I'm going to create an arpeggio, and let's do this here. Alright, so you get what's going on here. You just create your arpeggio, and you can play it like normal without an arpeggiator. Alright, so let's go to the next part, which is going to be the note order section. So there's a few things going on here. First is the rate or speed that you want the arpeggiator to play. So let's just do this here. Alright, so that's pretty self-explanatory. The note order is not, though. So these little buttons, it's just an up and down arrow. You can't really tell what's going on here. So what happens is, when you play your pattern, it's basically signifying the order in which they're going to be playing. If it's from first to the last and then completely start over, if it's going to go up and then back down. So let's just run through this here. Up is obviously, like I explained, first to last and then start over. The down is going to be opposite, last to first and then start from the last again. The up and down is going to be, obviously, you go through it, stop, and then come back down. This is going to be an offset as it continues down the line. This is going to be a random, and then the hand, I have not figured out what this means. I believe it's just whatever you play is what is going to be played every single time, and you can lock it. I don't really know. So let's move on. Let's go through a little demo of this just so that we can understand a little bit better what this note order is going to be doing for us. So I'm going to turn on latch, go to add, and let's play this. Alright, so you understand now a little bit better what's going on, how it's playing the notes. The variation and octave range, we'll get to a little bit later. First, I want to explain the grid, or pattern down here. So live is like I've been playing on. You play a note, as soon as you let go of it, it goes away unless you have that latch on. The grid is going to be you creating your own custom pattern. Once that pattern is created, you just press a note and it will play through that pattern. So a couple things to note here. If you can click on any of the certain places with the numbers. Down below these notes it's like the multi-note. This is if you want that particular part of the arpeggio to play the actual key. If there's going to be a chord played, if you want to actually have the chord come through in the arpeggio, then you need to have those selected. So another thing to note is if you click on the black behind any of them and you just drag, you can create wherever your mouse goes is wherever the velocity is written. So then if you also select any of the velocities, and you can drag it out to create a very long section. So this is going to sound like this. So pretty self-explanatory there as well. So let's get back to normal. Create something here. Come on. All right. So the octave range and variation are going to come into play when we have this now. The octave range is where the notes are going to be played. So if you press A in one range, the octave range is going to go up one higher in certain notes. If you go to 3, it's going to be 3 higher and then 4. So let's just kind of play with this octave range a little bit. So you can tell automatically that there's some notes that get pushed up to the next octave. Let's go back to normal. Then the variation is just how or what particular notes are going to be pushed to the different octaves. So it's kind of just a different groove when you change the variation. And then you can also select custom and get a bunch of defined preset patterns that we can play through if you'd like. All right. Let's go to the next section here. Next section is going to be the options section. There's going to be note length, velocity, swing, and cycle length. But with note length and velocity, we also get a random function. And also with velocity, we get this cool little function called crescendo, which I will be visiting here in a second. So note length is pretty self-explanatory. All right, and then we can create a randomness in the area that our note length is set to. Alright, so I mean it's a good function to have a little bit of randomness into it, so it's just not robotic. So let's go to velocity now. We can select the velocity from the grid, which is what we've set down here, or we can slowly take our velocity down to 0%, which is just going to be a set whatever. So let's just take a look at what this is doing. So you can tell that as I'm lowering this, the velocity of all the notes is starting to become uniform. And if we bring it all the way to the bottom, it says fix. And we are going to be fixing this velocity to a certain position. So if we play it, so you get the function there. So now if we play with the crescendo, it also has a random function, but if we play with the crescendo, we are fixing it to a very low velocity. So we are going to crescendo up at a certain rate. So that the velocity goes from very low to high in a certain period of time. The higher the rate here on the crescendo, the faster our crescendo is going to come, the faster it's going to happen. Okay, so you can tell that one is a little bit faster. But if we set this to high and we do the opposite, it's going to create a crescendo to the lower velocity. Alright, so that's a pretty cool little thing that we can do now with that crescendo function. Now with the swing, let's just go through that, see what that sounds like. So that's that. And then there's cycle length. You can do it as played, or you can decrease it until it's just by the grid. And I'm not going to get into that very much. The next two, keyboard and controller, are going to be more for a live situation. The Arpeggiator is a great plugin for not just post-production, mixing, production, stuff like that. It's also great for a live situation. If we go to our keyboard, we can link or we can snap our certain notes that we play to a certain whole note. You can snap it to a key and even to a certain scale, which is very cool. Even if you play a chord, it'll snap individual notes in that chord to the right key if they're not in that right key to begin with. So also what you can do is create a keyboard split. Now you have two things going on here. You have the remote and the arpeggio. The arpeggio is just going to be like normal. You press the key and it will play the arpeggiated line. The remote is a little bit different, so let's hit this plus and see what's going on here. As you can see, certain functions here in the arpeggiator are going to be mapped to certain keys on the keyboard. So now all you have to do is press a key and that will be changed here inside of this arpeggiator, which is really cool and very nice to use when it is in a live situation. You can see here that there's a latch on button. The latch on button, like I said, was supposed to be kind of a sustain pedal, right? So how do we map this instead of a certain note on the keyboard to that actual pedal on your controller? So if we go to that controller section, we can see that we can map certain things inside of our controller to a destination or a function inside of the arpeggiator. And this setup that I have right now is specific to my controller, but it's going to be different when you turn on and use your controller. And then you can just map whatever you want to the certain function here inside of that synth, or inside of the arpeggiator. So that's really all I wanted to go over today, everyone. Thanks for watching. I will be coming out with more of these shortly, but if you want to choose the next one that I do, take that survey that's in the description below. It's just a Google Drive survey. Just go take it. Super simple, and I'll be picking my next tutorial from there. Everyone, like usual, comment, rate, subscribe, and I will be seeing you all very soon. Stay BIOS.